And very good evening to you and a warm welcome to The Turning Point. This is Faraz. Some people say Newsline Faraz. I'm not complaining. But I thought we'd get a guest this evening to find out how Sri Lanka is doing economically speaking. There's many things, and Moody's, the ratings agency, described it today as Sri Lanka's despite the progress there, it is fragile. To find out how fragile it is, and indeed if it is fragile, we've got here with us the CEO of Advocata, Mr. Dannath Fernando. He's right here with me. Thank you, Dannath, for being supportive of the Turning Point. And welcome again.
Thank you for having me.
I have to ask you one question which has been bothering me. And it is this business about odious debt. Perhaps for the benefit of our listeners, you can tell us what is odious debt.
Odious debt is a concept if the creditor has extended debt with ulterior motive or which was not really beneficial for the country. There is a option that you can claim it as odious debt, that you are not going to pay it back,
right,
if it wasn't beneficial enough, and at the same time it was given with wrong motives like for corruption, so on and so forth.
So basically a loan has been given for some project which in simple terms the people didn't benefit.
Absolutely.
It only benefited a select group, basically to extract money out of the country's treasury.
I really cannot recall the exact definition,
No,
so don't
of
hold me
course,
into
yeah.
that. But
No.
the concept is
widely that.
Exactly, widely that when it's given for a bad reason, you basically, because ultimately the people, on the basis that the people have to pay for it is not fair. So because of that, we are not paying it. Is the concept.
It's very, very. I think it's been many years before when I think it was Spain that didn't pay because of that same concept. But just widely thinking about it, and I know you're more economist than law, and so is there anything that you can think of, some loan that perhaps Sri Lanka could have, or could even now, I suppose, ask it to be considered as an odious debt?
In my view, for us, very unlikely, because in that case, we have to prove that the government which was in power was undemocratic, or which was borrowed for wrong, with ulterior motive. And I'm sure we had taken a lot of bad debt, if we can prove it. But process
is very onerous, isn't it?
Exactly. So that the process is very time consuming, and by the time when we resolve that process, already the damage could have been much severe than what we experienced. So I wish that it can be claimed.
Okay, so onerous debt is difficult to prove because the magic word you used there was democratic. Fortunately or otherwise, all presidents and parliaments have been elected on a democratic basis. We've had independent observers who've been here, and by and large, they agree that it was free and fair elections. We may have differences in opinion about that, but by and large. Okay, so the chances are very unrealistic.
Chances are very unrealistic. Again, I wish that if we can get a better debt cut or a relief, even if we cannot pay anything at all, it's good. But on a practical lens, very unlikely.
Very unlikely. It would be nice to get repaid our money for Matale Airport, which is underutilized, and Hambantota Port, which is really not showing up the numbers. But what can we do? We'll go on to more practical matters then. So Sri Lanka is now on target revenue-wise, and I think our reserves are about $6.4 billion. We are traversing towards 7.5. That's what the target is.
Correct.
So is this enough? we're doing enough? Are we going to have enough money left in the kitty to start repaying, to servicing some of the debt that begins, I think, at the end of 2027 and
Yes.
28?
So already we are servicing our multilateral debt,
Yeah,
interest of commercial debt,
yeah,
and some are mainly the domestic debt, and we
Yeah.
are basically paying. And the bullet payments mainly comes starting from 2028, and also it's a step up arrangement that we have agreed.
yeah,
The truth is, one reason at the beginning of the show you mentioned the Moody's projection.
yeah.
One reason why it's fragile is it's not adequate yet. Because
Right,
7 billion, at the moment 6 billion plus, is not adequate to continuously service our debt.
right.
So we have to constantly accumulate reserves, but the challenge is the reserves or the dollar or the currency, foreign currency, is limited because we have to use it to import. At the same time, we have to use it for building the reserves. So that means you have to have a higher foreign exchange flow
Yeah.
to manage both. And what
Right.
we can see is over the last few months, the central bank reserve collection has been fairly, I would say, conservative, or it's not upticking, it's stagnant.
Right,
So there are question marks whether actually they can hit the revenue targets as expected,
right.
rather the reserve targets as expected. But the positive point is generally our remittances getting better in November, December because of the festive season.
Right.
People send more and more money. So
Yeah.
as a result, we may stand a chance,
Yeah.
or else there may be a slight depreciation in the currency, because then that means when the central bank buys a lot of dollars from the market,
Yes.
of course the currency can slightly depreciate by a few rupees, not like a steep depreciation. That may be able to manage, but again it's depending on the central bank strategy on inflation and what they are going to do. So the simple answer is no, it is not adequate. That has to come through economic growth. But at the moment our economy is stable and we are not in a bad position compared to where we were.
But we're not growing as much as we ought to be growing.
Absolutely. I think that's why the fragile word comes from Moody's, because it is, if you are, since everyone knows that we are not doing any reforms yet to grow the economy. And to grow the economy, it takes time, because if you do the reform now, it takes 2 to 3 years to see the results. So if you are not doing it now, means you are going to have a problem in 2 to 3 years time if it doesn't grow enough. At the same time, we should not forget, over the last few years, weather has been very kind. We had good rain, and that helps the agricultural productivity on one side. And don't forget, our renewable energy contribution was almost at about 70%.
Right.
So as a result, we did not have to import a lot of coal and fuel to run our electricity grid.
Right.
So those two have been unsung heroes.
Right.
So with that, in case of a climate event or a drought or a unfortunate weather event, we can again slide back to a difficult position.
But from a political perspective, the other unsung heroes are, of course, the majority of the population, the people, the voters. I often hear them say, and I talk to at least 4 strangers a day, and I ask them the same question. And the question is, what has this change, this government of change, what has the change meant to the ordinary person? And it's usually with the end of the question is, does it mean that you have more money in your pocket now? And invariably the answer is no. No, we don't have. And so there's this frustration that, but hopefully it might. And so the hope carries on. But in the same time, people point out to me and say, but, you know, we are still struggling, we as in the general. But there are some people who love to bring cars, brand new cars can be brought in at very high sort of duty rates. Is there a rational explanation? Why would the government squander this, for want of a better word, squander these reserves of 6.4? Because surely they should be collecting it all, like the prudent housewives out there, and keeping it because they'll need it to repay. So is there an explanation?
As far as two explanations. One is, first, we are not importing from reserves. Of course, because we are importing from the export proceedings, from the services sector, including tourism proceedings, we import. Of course, there's a logic. Okay, if we do not import cars, that foreign exchange will remain in the market, so central bank has more space to buy that.
Yeah.
But allowing car imports is a very profitable business to the government.
Oh, really?
Because they charge 200% to 250% taxes. So what they're actually doing is selling those dollars which they could have collected as reserves at a profit margin of 200% to 250%.
I think the people at the Ministry of Finance are pretty smart then.
In that case, they are very smart, and that's one reason why the government is achieving their revenue targets. Because even if they collect those reserves, what do they have to do? They have to go and deposit at the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
What's the interest rate that they give?
Yeah.
not even 5%.
Yeah. Okay.
So now you have an opportunity to charge at 200% or 250%.
Right.
Which is a very profitable business.
Indeed.
So that's why they're achieving the reserve, the revenue targets. So that's the explanation that I have. But do not forget, a lot of people think it's the BYDs or the SUVs that are coming. But it is, I'm sure if you follow the vehicle registration statistics, it's the two-wheelers that are mainly imported. I mean, as a number, motorbikes.
Yes.
And about, if I remember right, about 10% to 12% is also electric motorbikes.
Okay.
So it's about, if I remember the numbers right, about 12,000, I think about 12,000. I mean, a greater proportion is on the two-wheelers, and the number of pre-registered vehicles, SUVs, these crossover vehicles are, compared to the number, of course, value-wise, it may have a higher value, but value-wise, it's the
unit-wise,
it's the two-wheelers.
Right.
So point is, the common man also bears. I mean, they shoulder the burden.
Indeed.
Or indeed, at importing a motorbike as well.
Of course. But that's a fantastic explanation that the government is actually doing better than the Hawala traders. I'm told that the Hawala people just make about 5% here and there. But that's excellent. So the people of the Treasury should be commended for thinking about all this. But this must have been going on for years now.
Yes. Since I mean, for a long time.
Yeah.
At the same time, of course, it's very difficult to reverse this policy as well, because most of the leasing companies and the finance companies, I mean, their balance have funded there at completely unreasonable vehicle prices.
Yeah.
And valuations.
So the government will have to maintain this the duty differentials between used cars and the brand new imports, because otherwise the bottom will fall out of the used car market.
Absolutely.
Causing great sin and damage to the finance companies and banks as well, I suppose.
Absolutely.
So we're looking now at the budget. What should be there in the budget?
I would say, if we were to, I mean, bring a theme to the budget, it has to be pro-growth, pro-poor.
Yeah.
How can you make it pro-growth? There's very limited space. Finance minister has to increase taxes or cut down expenditure.
Yeah.
Because already it's, I mean, out of expenditure, a significant, I mean, more than half goes to pay the interest.
Yeah.
And then it's a recurrent expenditure, and there's very limited space on capital expenditure, and to do anything quite surprising. At the same time, very limited space also to increase the taxes. Already it has been increased. Only way is to improve the tax administration and collect more and more revenue. So how can we make it pro-poor? I would recommend, because even President, I saw, I mean, he was at the World Habitat Day saying that the house is, I mean, housing is one of the basic human rights. So our cost of construction is across the board extremely high. Cement, I'm not talking about fancy stuff, just the basic cement, tiles, sanitary ware, steel.
Yeah.
Those four are basics for any basic construction.
Yeah.
That has about, 50%, 60%, 80% tariffs.
Right.
And what we are collecting from cess is minimal, because to begin with, not many imports on those categories are coming into Sri Lanka, because the tariff rates are very high. So ideally, to make it pro-poor, pro-growth, that has to come down, because when the construction prices comes down for us, it helps the tourism industry, everybody,
Yeah.
house builders, middle class, everyone. So
Yeah.
that's one way to look at it, on pro-poor, pro-growth. And maybe with the, if we have excess, if we have space, again consider the social safety net, Aswasuma, because 25% in poverty and another 10% according to World Bank statistics just above or touching the poverty line.
Yeah.
Almost about 30% is pretty much at the poverty. Even I would say even the next 10% is not having a very good time now.
Yes.
They are just also struggling and managing with greatest
Yeah,
difficulty.
but they're struggling at a different,
Absolutely.
at a different level.
This-
But so different people suffering at different levels.
different levels. So everyone is suffering,
But
they are
everyone
different,
is
suffering.
at different levels.
Different levels.
Yes.
So, but at least to manage that 1/3 of the population,
Yeah.
consider Aswasuma if we have fiscal space.
And but okay, I was going to ask you: is there much that the government can do in this budget? What can we really do to? What can they do to grow the economy?
Yeah, well, couple of suggestions. One is yes, cost of construction. Second is actually the land reforms.
Right.
We are recommending, as a policy think tank,
Yeah.
and even personal capacity, the accelerate BIM Savia.
Right.
Because BIM Savia, this project is coming from about 30 years ago, from 1990s. They are running it like a torrent system.
Yeah.
Which
This is to digitalize all the land.
Digitalized, but what they are basically doing is giving there's a difference between a deed and a title.
Okay.
Deed is a record of a transaction. So Faraz and I come to an agreement, it's a contract, so we go and register it.
Right.
And there can be a registry of all the transactions regarding this particular plot of land. So then we can trace who owns actually finally the land. But the challenge is, there can be many people who can register contracts for the same particular land, not only you and I. So that's why the deed system is very complicated.
Right.
When you go to the bank, they have to go back to 30, 50 years to really trace who owns what.
Yeah.
But the title system is, it's actually on a digital cadastral, and which the ownership is backed by the state. So when you have that certificate, no questions asked. Banks, it's very easy to process a loan. It's like a vehicle registry book. A vehicle registry book, you don't need to go back to 30 years.
Yes.
Who owns, the name is very clear. I transfer, vehicle ownership, that's it. So same concept can be applied for land. At the moment, there are about at the beginning of the process, there are about 16 million land plots.
Right.
Over 30 years, they have only done 1 million.
Oh.
They are doing about 50,000 per year. If they go at that rate, it will take 300 years to complete this
Right.
BIM Savia. So what we recommend is accelerate that, because that will induce growth. Because when you have the land title, people can go and take credit from the bank, and that means the mason bars, the furniture guy, the curtain gentleman, everyone gets business.
Right.
That can grow the economy. So that's another suggestion, but it has to have sort of a war room concept, because 50,000 is not adequate at all. Of course, there are challenges. There are not adequate surveyors. There are challenges with the cadastral system. There are challenges with funding. BIM Savia hasn't been funded properly. So all that, there has to be some level of acceleration is the second one. The third suggestion is appointing a tax ombudsman. While everyone is celebrating that, okay, we are achieving the revenue targets, of course, some companies and some individuals has been harassed. And ombudsman is not the tax assessor, but at least on the tax policy level and on the procedure, that at least you have an ombudsman that you can go and complain. So at least it gives some security and safety on the taxpayer's point of view, because otherwise the harassment can continue.
Right. Is it possible for you to tell us maybe 3 or 5 items what the government, can you suggest to the government what they ought to be doing? 5 items that will grow the economy?
First, my favorite topic, state-owned enterprises. At least they mentioned that they have done like the first draft of the holding company that has to come out. Economic transformation, mainly the BOI and the land issue pertaining for the investors has to be solved. I don't know whether it can be the Economic Transformation Act or any other name. Ultimately, land has to be available for the investors.
Instead of the government hanging on to it.
Absolutely. Number two. Number three, lot of public-private partnership lineup is not very clear for funding and for development, because ultimately there's a big growth aspect coming from public investment to an extent.
Yeah.
But we have to prioritize the right projects and have the right donor or the funder to fund that project.
Right.
So that is the third one. The fourth one, I would say cutting down the para-tariffs, because even when the government builds a school or a school toilet, they are spending too much on construction.
Yeah.
So cut down para-tariffs, at least on construction items, the 4 items that I mentioned. Okay,
Right.
let's forget about everything else, aluminium and all that, let's leave it aside. But at least on the 4 main items. The fifth one is, I would say, BIMSAVIA, because that can induce growth. If you have fiscal space, maybe better do targeting on the Aswasuma scheme. So those are the 5 things that I would recommend.
And what about tourism? I mean, we have the rooms, we have everything, but the occupancy overall over a per annum basis is not much there. Shouldn't the government, or should they be encouraging more flights to come into the country?
They should for us, but tourism has, the positioning of a product has an issue which has been in discussion for a long time.
Yeah.
But again, cost of construction is a key factor for tourism, because if you know our room inventory,
Yeah.
majority of it is the long tail, small and medium scale
Yeah.
entrepreneurs who are in this business,
Yeah.
in terms of as a room suppliers.
Yeah.
And even the 5-star hotels, they are struggling to renovate their rooms because of the high cost of construction. Generally, you know this industry better than I do. Every 5 years, there has to be some level of refurbishment
Yeah.
in this industry. So that's why I said cost of construction is important. But to attract better tourists, they have to basically improve the public infrastructure. Because at the moment, tourists, it's very inconvenient. If they are looking at the numbers that we are speaking about, it's 3 million, 5 million,
Yeah.
we really cannot accommodate that many number of
Yeah.
tourists.
Right.
So rather, there's no direct one, that's the public-private partnership lineup that all in a way linked to the tourism goal. But of course, you have to do the marketing right to set the product right, is my view. But there's nothing in terms of flights and all that. Then you have to make the airport levies and the payment structure more competitive. At the moment, it's
I
not.
think that's a bit of almost an understatement, Dana, because according to my sources within the aviation industry, apparently Sri Lanka has got the highest landing and takeoff charges in this part of the region, and that's sort of counterproductive.
No, 100%. I completely agree. But I'm not sure, because if you look at the one political capitalization the government does is claiming the profits that the Airport Aviation Authority has made.
Yeah.
And now they are going to invest some of those profits in Ratmalana Airport and some other airports, including the domestic ones.
Yeah.
So they are earning those huge profits, because by making our airport and aviation center uncompetitive, charging extremely high prices.
Yeah.
So we are not competitive, so we are not doing good. But if the government is willing to take that risk, I definitely recommend, because we are very uncompetitive in the region.
Is in terms of, Sri Lanka is full of contradictions. It's this business in Sinhalese. I love the way the Sinhalese language can explain this, and that is asai bayai. So on the one side, you have this wonderful thing called protectionism, which as an economist you'll be familiar with. But honestly, doesn't this protectionism work at odds with what we want, which is, they say, it's open market? Everyone talks about this. Even Mr. Wickremesinghe, who I would say is the guru of this neoliberalism and all of that, even under his governments, we've had protectionism. Sri Lankan Airlines, along with Emirates, had this huge protectionism issue. They own the belts, the conveyor belts that takes your bag all around and goes and drops it on the other side. That's, if you're another airline, you've got to pay Sri Lankan Airlines, your competitor on, say, on any route. And it doesn't make sense. That to me is what I call about this asai buy business. Because it's a contradiction. How can you do that? You need to, if it's open, then you can't have that closed and that protected, and then say, well, we want to go for open skies policy.
Absolutely, Faraz. While I agree with you, Asaibai, there's another policy which is liberalize everything except my industry.
Yes.
Syndrome.
Yes.
You do everything, you globalize everything, but don't touch
touch
my industry.
Yeah.
So same thing happens across a lot of industries, including shipping, aviation, to an extent construction, and many other industries. That's why we are here today, unfortunately, because we really haven't grown. And again, even in food items and things like that, which affects poor, affecting it very badly. I mean, if you look at the prices of rice, the basic needs, it's very expensive than India, or even in comparatively to the South Asian region, so Southeast Asian region. So this really is not the way forward. That's why we need economic reforms, and I hope the government would understand. I think President sounded some of it right, like, okay, government, please don't engage in this supermarket businesses, and the provincial councils or the local governments trying to do in prime land. I mean, prime property as supermarkets and all that is not going to work. So he sounded the right thing, but the challenge is to really get it into execution.
In all of this, they seem to have forgotten all their leftist ideologies. And at the end of the day, Sri Lanka, happily, is going the route of even China went that way. They were, almost a closed economy. And now look where China is. But I'm not complaining, but I just thought I'd rub it in a little bit. But Dhanat, thank you. But very quickly, what do you think? What's the outlook? Positive?
At the moment, positive, but all depends on this budget and the next 6 months. How many growth reforms that the government can bring? Depending on that, everything will change. I mean, if they bring the growth reforms, we have a chance. Otherwise, we are slowly sliding away for another difficult time, and it's a matter of time.
I'm indebted to a viewer who has sent a question to me on the back of the knowledge that you're arriving here for a program, and that is this. I don't know whether you have the answer to this, but let's try. How much of gold reserves does Sri Lanka Central Bank have?
I really cannot recall the figure, but I know it's not a big number because we depleted most of our gold reserves during the crisis. I'm not sure how much they accumulated afterwards. I really cannot recall the figure.
Right. Is it a good idea? Because most central banks all over the world seem to have got. I mean, gold in 2023 March was around $2,350 for an ounce. It's now gone through the $4,000 mark.
Absolutely. So a lot of central banks and investors, with the global uncertainty, they were mainly depending on gold as a asset class. That's why there's big uptick on gold prices. I'm not very sure about how much gold that we invested in. Likely, I have a feeling that the central bank may have considered that option. But of course, we have very limited resources. So what we could do is very limited, but I am sure they may have considered. I'm not sure. I really cannot recall the figures.
But it's not such a big deal because otherwise we would have heard about it.
Yes.
Dhanat, thank you very much for being on The Turning Point. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Faraz. Thank you for having me.
And it's a great pleasure. We look forward to welcoming you again, perhaps after the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's the way it was on The Turning Point. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to please press your subscribe button and take care until the next time. God bless you all.